Dear aspirants, to save your time and energy, it is quite essential that you need to read current issues in the form of previous year questions, MCQs and mains related questions, and doing some value addition from authentic sources, PRS India and Press Information Bureau. That is called CARE Current Affairs Reverse Engineering. And upscale meditation mentorship is also having such a component related to CARE. And these are our programs, and mains module wise marathon can also be run in this format only. Here I would like to display one article given in the Hindu. It was also discussed several times in editorials, and this article is talking about Personal Digital Data Protection Act and certain contentious issues. However, I have taken entire Personal Digital Data Protection Act related information, key features also, and critical analysis associated with it. We have framed a question. Based on this question, we can go through this article, discuss the provisions, key provisions and potential issues surrounding the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and also in this context, safeguarding individual rights and privacy in India's digital landscape is quite essential. So, how will you make it possible? Here the kind of discuss is an all encompassing which you need to analyze in 360 degrees. It will give it should ask you and seek you information and analyze it in the form of counter arguments, pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages, okay, and you need to provide a robust solution framework. Here the discuss is an encompassive directive which is directing you to discuss and provide a robust and comprehensive holistic analysis regarding Digital Personal Data Protection Act, right. So, you need to provide key features and associated critical elements in it. Here you need to learn two aspects before going to the actual digital personal data protection. One is about this data fiduciary and the second one is data principal. Data fiduciary is a person who is collecting your data and maintaining it, storing it and processing such a data. Any private individual or government or person who is collecting such a data is called as data fiduciary. He should be accountable to the data principal. Data principal is a person to whom it is related. I mean the data which is given to anybody. And suppose if I am kind of accessing Swiggy, Zomato or kind of Uber, Ola, motor vehicle aggregation, I need to provide my mobile number, right. I will be called as data principal. My mobile number should never be shared to any other third person. That is my privilege and the benefit that I need to get from this Personal Digital Data Protection Act. If anybody violates it, they will be penalized under this act only. So, but this act has certain contentious issues. Before going to such contentious issues, I would like to give you two mnemonics regarding this data principles and innovative features. The one mnemonic is about class. What is meant by class? CLAS and M. Okay. Here you need to consider L twice and A twice. Consent is very much essential while taking data. So, without having any voluntary undertaking, if you collect any information from a person, you will be penalized. Okay. And next, limitation, that is purpose related limitation and storage related limitation. For what specific purpose you are collecting the data, okay. And if you are collecting data to provide benefits under Aadhaar Act, you should never use that data for any other purpose. Okay. It is only to give beneficiaries a kind of privilege transparently without having any leakage. That is the only essential aspect under this Aadhaar Act. So, the purpose is limited. For that purpose only you need to collect the data. So, the purpose specific limitation and storage specific limitation. So, how much time you need to store that data and for what period? Suppose I have subscribed to an insurance service and that may be matured after 5 years. So, these 5 years only I need to store the data, that is storage related limitation. Likewise, and next thing is accountability accuracy. I need to update the data, correct it accordingly and maintaining all the documents accurately. It is very much essential. And accountability, if there is any breach of such a privilege given to data principal, there should be a penalized provision under this one. Therefore, accountability is essential on the part of this data fiduciaries. Okay. that is accountability, accuracy, accountability, storage limitation and purpose limitation. Next, consent is essential. The voluntary consent is required while collecting data from the data principles. And next, safety and security. Such a robust safety and security has to be provided. If anybody violating such a principle as on part of data fiduciary, they will be penalized under this act. Therefore, data minimization. So, this is also very important. Under Aadhaar Act, the government should never enter into any contract with a corporate body. This was also a previous year question in the UPSC prelims 2020, and those corporate bodies should never take Aadhaar as proof of residence or address as making it mandatory. If I want to purchase any insurance service, it is also one of the statements given in the UPSC that insurance service should never be given, should never be taken by giving only Aadhaar as compulsory proof of birth or proof of residence. Okay. Such a kind of minimization means only number is required, phone number, that has to be taken. Number and place of birth is required, okay, fine, that must have to be taken. Only date of birth is required, that must have to be taken, okay. But other than that, you should never seek any extra data. So, data has to be minimized as much as possible while collecting. That is data minimization. Okay. Master class, this is the mnemonic that I have developed. And next, Saral, simple and accessible, actionable law and rational also. This should be Saral, simple, accessible, rational and actionable law. So, this is the provision given under this Personal Data Protection Act, and first time that Government of India mentioned she instead of he while addressing data fiduciaries or data principles. Okay. Next, the bill provides the following data conditions for the data fiduciary. Already I have discussed, and we need to analyze the critical part of this article actually. And there is an independent data protection board provided under this. It should take action against those breachers who are breaching this Data Protection Act, and it can also provide alternate dispute resolution mechanism between the fiduciaries and the principals, and it can also give you guidelines frequently. Accordingly, the fiduciaries have to follow and adhere to those guidelines. Okay. This is the Personal Digital Data Protection Act related provision. Okay. And I mean board, but there are also contentious issues because the board is not independent in nature. It is only recruited for 2 years and reappointment is allowed by the Government of India. So, such reappointment only short span of time, that is only 2 years, may also compromise the independence of this Personal Digital Data Board or Data Protection Board. Okay. So, and also what is the reasonable safeguard, rational reasonable safeguard, that was also mentioned as principles, right. How will you define it? And next thing, the data which is run by Indian entities may also be shared outside those countries, outside the countries, because they are operating in India. So, how will you maintain such a robust security mechanism? How will you protect the principles? How will you protect the data privacy of the principles while it is shared intercontinental? If intercontinental sharing is also regulated under this Personal Digital Data Protection Act, right? But if the government is involved in it, how will you make it accountable? So, such a kind of principle, doctrine of separation and also security agencies which are collecting this data are exempted from this kind of Data Protection Act, right. So, how will you make them accountable if they are exceeding their proportional power? Okay. Such doctrine of proportionality, if the data is collected exactly proportion to the power that is given to them and the yield out of it, okay, that has to be conditioned under the Supreme Court guidelines given in 2017. So, how will you make it condition when you are exempting those security agencies or investigating authorities from this kind of Personal Digital Data Protection Act? And one more thing, that is IT related act. Information Technology Act is also having certain penal provisions under this kind of privacy rights violation, something else. So, if somebody's privacy is violated under this Personal Digital Data Protection Act, they may approach this independent board, that, as I have said, this Digital Data Protection Board, they may approach it and they can get benefit out of it, but they cannot approach under this IT Act. How will you make it segregated? It is coming under Digital Personal Data Protection Act and it is coming under IT Act. And also, is it not a compromisation, is it not a kind of compromising of rights and privileges given to the data principles under this Personal Digital Data Protection Act. Previously they had certain privileges and rights under IT Act, now they are unable to avail. If they avail those penal provisions to under this Personal Digital Data Protection Act, right. If they want protection under this Personal Digital Data Protection Act to get benefit out of it and to get justice out from it, they cannot claim certain rights under this IT Act. Okay. So, such kind of segregation is giving a kind of compromisation related to accountability. So, these are the bone of contentious issues, and Right to Information Act is also compromised because of those security agencies which are involved, and article and section 44 mentioned about it also, how it compromised right to information. It has to be stringently followed, that should be allowed, and independence of the Personal Digital Data Protection Board has to be adhered, and voluntary undertaking has to be monitored. How will you define it, voluntary undertaking? And with respect to the children, the minors, age related segregation and their personal data has to be monitored by the guardians. So, how will you take such an information from the guardians while giving service to the children in the form of digital services, digital service providers or platform or education entities, right. So, this is a complex issue. So, robust security mechanism and safeguard system has to be imposed while addressing this kind of Digital Personal Data Protection Act. It can only be possible by bringing those independent authorities and also providing other acts related provisions which are coming under other acts, that is Right to Information Act and Information Technology Act related, right. So, preserve Right to Information Act is very much important. Data processing, how they are processing data, data fiduciaries who are processing that such data has to be added to such kind of information accountability mechanism, and mandated consent for data sharing is required. How intercontinental data is shared, whether they are genuinely operating in India and providing any online service, that intercontinental data sharing is really valid under this Personal Data Protection Act. So, such regulating non-digital, and one more thing, non-digital anonymous data, how will you protect that personal information? Because I will be giving my physical copy of the data, my personal data, Xerox copies of Aadhaar card, something else, PAN card, something. How will that personal data which is given non-digital format is not coming under this Personal Digital Data Protection Act, right. It is non-digital in nature. How will you protect such a personal data if it is non-digital? And anonymous data, anonymously the data is shared and collected from one person to another person is a bulk manner, and purchasing of this data in the form of wealth and fuel is has to be regulated. So, such anonymized and non-digital data has to be regulated, right. So, enable easy data transfer. Okay. And next thing, sensitive and critical data distinction has to be made, okay, which is sensitive and critical in nature, which is not sensitive and critical. Okay. So, that has to be clearly defined and integrated in this Personal Digital Data Protection Act. These are the solutions. So, these keywords are essential for you to dump this information in the original examination within 6 minutes to attain at least 50 to 55% scores out of 10 or 15 marks question, right. This is our module wise mains marathon, only the keyword, but the information which is value added from the PABs and PRS India, and holistic information in the form of keywords can help you to develop certain mnemonics to dump the real information in the original examination, right. This is a kind of a module wise mains marathon MMM through current affairs reverse engineering care. All the very best and thank you.